It started with a phone. Not mine. Hers. One evening, while we were watching a movie, her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She reached for it instinctively, but I caught her wrist before she could grab it. "Let's just watch this," I said, squeezing her hand gently. She laughed a nervous, brittle sound and pulled away. "It's just a reminder," she insisted, snatching the phone and disappearing into the kitchen. The screen lit up in her hand as she walked away, casting a faint blue glow on her face. I didn't think much of it. At least, not then. But the next morning, I noticed something odd. Her phone was charging on the counter, unlocked, the screen still glowing. I hesitated. Spying on her felt wrong, even dishonorable. But curiosity has a way of twisting your morals, doesn't it? I leaned closer. The last message on her screen wasn't from a client or a friend. It was a name I didn't recognize. Alex. Just Alex. No surname. No context. Just 3 words. Still on for 8. I stepped back like the phone had burned me. When Elena came downstairs, I said nothing. I watched her instead, the way she hummed as she poured coffee, the way her fingers drummed impatiently on the counter while she waited for it to cool. She didn't mention the message. Neither did I. But the questions began to pile up. There was the time she canceled our anniversary dinner last minute, claiming a migraine, only to post a photo of herself laughing at a rooftop bar with a group of strangers. Or the weeks she spent redecorating her office, coming home late every night with the scent of unfamiliar cologne clinging to her clothes. Once, I found a receipt in her bag for a hotel room paid in cash, booked under a different name. When I asked about it, she blamed a mix-up with her assistant. "You know how chaotic the office gets," she said, brushing it off. I wanted to believe her. Then there was the email. It arrived late one night while I was working from home. Elena was out girls' night, she'd said, but her laptop was open on the kitchen table. I didn't mean to snoop. I was only looking for a pen when I saw it. A draft email addressed to Alex. The subject line read, "We need to talk." The body was empty except for 2 sentences. "You promised this wouldn't get messy. I'm starting to regret everything. What happens if he finds out?" I closed the laptop like it was a bomb about to detonate. For hours, I sat in the dark, replaying every moment, every lie. The late calls, the sudden trips, the way she'd flinch when I hugged her from behind, as if my touch startled her. Had I been blind? Or had she just been that good at hiding it? The next morning, I confronted her. Sort of. "I saw the email," I said, my voice trembling. She froze mid-sip, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. "What email?" Her tone was calm, too calm. "The one addressed to Alex." Her eyes narrowed, not with guilt, but with something colder, calculation. "You went through my laptop. You left it open." I snapped. "Who's Alex?" She set the cup down slowly, her fingers tapping the table. "An investor," she said again, the same lie as before. "A problem client. He's been threatening legal action over some faulty inventory. I was going to tell you, but I didn't want to stress you out. And the hotel receipt. Work event. I told you about it last week. And the text that made you rush out of the room last night." She sighed. The kind of sigh that made me feel like I was the unreasonable one. "It's complicated. But trust me, it's not what you think." Trust. That word felt heavier than ever. But here's the thing about trust. Once it cracks, even the smallest fracture can flood the entire foundation. Weeks passed, and the cracks multiplied. She started locking her phone with a fingerprint instead of a passcode. She changed her Instagram password, muttering about privacy concerns. Once, I found her whispering into her phone in a language I didn't recognize, Russian, maybe, before snapping it shut when I walked into the room. And then there was the voicemail. I wasn't supposed to hear it. Her phone was on the charger, and the screen lit up with a notification. New voicemail. The message played automatically, filling the silent kitchen with a man's voice, slow, urgent, familiar. Elena, we need to reschedule. Something came up. Don't panic. Just trust me. The voice belonged to the man from Leela's recital, the silver-haired stranger with the hollow smile. I stood there, frozen, as the message ended. When Elena walked in, I didn't say a word. I just handed her the phone. She stared at the screen, her face unreadable. Then, quietly, "This isn't what it looks like." I laughed a bitter, broken sound. "How many times are you going to say that?" She didn't answer. By then, I knew the truth, even if I hadn't fully admitted it yet. Elena wasn't just hiding something. She was playing a game, and I was starting to realize I didn't know the rules. They called us the golden couple, not in a sarcastic way, not behind our backs. People actually said it out loud. At dinner parties, at charity events, even strangers would glance at us and smile like they'd just witnessed something beautiful. We had everything. A 5-bedroom house with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. A white picket fence. 2 kids, Lily, 7, and Jacob, 3, both with Elena's eyes and my stubbornness. We were successful, stylish, enviable. She was a fashion designer who turned her passion into a thriving brand. I ran a tech startup that went viral faster than we expected. And we were happy. Or so everyone thought. At least, that's what she wanted them to believe. Looking back now, I realize how carefully she orchestrated it all. The Instagram posts with captions like "still pinching myself every morning." The photos of us holding hands at sunset, her head on my shoulder like nothing could ever tear us apart. Even the way she dressed, always put together, never a hair out of place, as if she knew someone might snap a picture at any moment. But there were cracks beneath the surface, small ones, easy to miss if you weren't looking. Like the way she smiled when she thought no one was watching, not warm or joyful, but tight-lipped, calculating. Or how she handled arguments. She never raised her voice, never slammed doors. Instead, she'd stare at me like I was an equation she hadn't quite solved yet, then walk away mid-conversation. That silence, worse than yelling. She was good at control. Too good. Even our love story felt scripted. We met at a rooftop party during Fashion Week, surrounded by champagne flutes and neon lights. She wore a black dress that shimmered like starlight, and when I approached her, she didn't flirt. She asked me questions about my work, my fears, my dreams. I thought she was different from the other girls I dated. Thought she saw me, not the money or the name. Maybe she did, at first, but over time, things changed. She started scheduling dinners with investors I barely knew, inviting clients over late at night to discuss branding. Once, I came home early and found her laughing with a man I didn't recognize. He left quickly, muttering something about being early for a meeting. Elena just kissed my cheek and said, "You're home sooner than I expected." I should have questioned it, but I didn't, because everything looked perfect. Our friends adored her. My parents trusted her. Even my sister confided in me once, saying, "You really hit the jackpot with her." And I believed it. I truly did, until I didn't. The signs were always there, subtle, silent, like background music in a horror movie. You don't notice it until the scream comes. There was the way she handled money. Not reckless, but oddly strategic. Investments I didn't know about. Offshore accounts she claimed were for tax reasons. When I asked, she shrugged and said, "You trust me, right?" Of course I did. That's what couples do, isn't it? Trust each other. Then there were the trips. Solo ones. To Paris, Milan, Tokyo. Always for business. Always last minute. "You know how fashion works," she'd say, kissing my forehead before slipping into a taxi. "I'll be back before you miss me." But I missed her. every time, and she always came back. Different. Lighter somehow. Like she'd been somewhere she couldn't wait to return to. Once, I found a receipt in her bag for a hotel suite booked under a different name. When I asked about it, she laughed. It was a mistake, she said. Their system glitched. It happens all the time. I nodded, believing her. After all, why wouldn't I? We were happy, successful, in love, or so I thought. What I didn't know then, what I wouldn't learn until much later, was that Elena wasn't just building a life with me. She was building a plan, and I was just one piece on the board. I used to think love was about trust, about knowing someone so deeply that you could close your eyes and still feel them beside you, even in silence. But Elena taught me something else. She taught me that love can be a performance, one played so convincingly that even the audience forgets it's not real. We met 5 years before we got married. She was just starting her fashion line, working out of a tiny studio in Soho with paint-splattered walls and racks of unfinished designs. I remember walking in there for the first time, drawn in by the scent of fresh fabric and the sound of scissors slicing through silk. She didn't look up when I entered, just kept cutting, her fingers moving like she already knew exactly what shape the dress would take. "You're early," she said without looking at me. "I thought I'd surprise you." She smiled then, really smiled, and for a moment, I forgot why I was even there. That's how she was. Commanding, confident, always 3 steps ahead, but also warm, thoughtful. She remembered my favorite books, the way I took my coffee, the name of my childhood dog. She made me feel known, understood, and maybe that was part of the act too. In the beginning, our life together felt like a dream. We traveled constantly, Paris for Fashion Week, Tokyo for inspiration, Dubai for fun. We had brunch with influencers, dinners with investors, charity galas where photographers snapped our pictures like we were celebrities. Elena loved the spotlight. Not in an obvious way, she never posed for selfies or begged for attention, but she knew how to work a room, how to make people lean in when she spoke, how to make them believe they mattered. Even our marriage seemed effortless. We never argued in public, never disagreed on anything important. When Lily was born, Elena posted a photo of us holding her hand in the hospital bed with the caption, "The most perfect moment of my life." When Jacob arrived 2 years later, the post read, "Two miracles, one family, infinite love." People ate it up, liked, shared, commented with hearts and prayers and emojis of babies and flowers. But behind closed doors, things were different. Not bad, not violent or broken, just off, like a song playing slightly out of tune. You don't notice it at first, but once you do, you can't unhear it. There were moments when I caught her staring at me, not with love, but with something colder, calculating, like she was trying to solve a puzzle only she knew existed. Once, after a long day at work, I came home early and found her sitting alone in the study. The lights were off except for a small lamp on the desk. Her laptop screen glowed softly in front of her, casting shadows across her face. She didn't hear me come in. For a few seconds, I watched her. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Her jaw was tight, and her eyes, those beautiful, unreadable eyes, were filled with something I couldn't name. Not sadness, not anger, something else. Control. She blinked and looked up, startled. Then she smiled, that same practiced smile from the Instagram posts, and said, "You're home early." I kissed her forehead. "Everything okay?" "Just work," she said, closing the laptop. "Nothing to worry about." And I believed her. Because everything looked perfect. Because I wanted to. Because I trusted her. The worst part wasn't that she lied. It was that I never saw it coming. I mean, how could I? Every morning, she'd wake up before me, already dressed in something elegant, a silk robe, a vintage t-shirt, and high-waisted jeans. Always with her hair perfectly brushed and her makeup just enough to make her look like she hadn't tried at all. She'd make breakfast for the kids, pack their lunches, kiss me goodbye like we were still newlyweds. And when I came home from work late, stressed and exhausted, she'd be there. Always smiling, always warm, sometimes too warm, like she knew exactly what I needed before I even asked. She had this way of reading people, not just me, but everyone. Friends, coworkers, strangers at the grocery store. She remembered names, birthdays, inside jokes. People gravitated toward her. They trusted her. Even my best friend, Marcus, used to say, "You've got it good, man." Elena's special, special. That word haunts me now, because looking back, I see it all so clearly. The way she played every role to perfection. Wife, mother, businesswoman, friend. She never slipped, never made a mistake. But real people do. Real people forget things, lose their temper, make bad decisions, show weakness. Elena never did. Not once. And maybe that should have been my first clue. There was one night, I'll never forget it, when everything almost unraveled. We were at a charity gala downtown, dressed in black tie, surrounded by people who mattered. Elena looked breathtaking, as always. Her dress was deep red, strapless, hugging her waist like it was made just for her. Everyone wanted to talk to her. Investors, designers, journalists. I stood beside her, listening as she laughed, charmed, dazzled. Then, halfway through the night, something changed. Her smile faltered. Just for a second, a flicker of tension in her jaw, a slight shift in her posture. I followed her gaze across the room. A man, tall, sharp suit, dark hair. He didn't look familiar, but Elena did. She knew him. He caught her eye and gave the smallest nod, not friendly, not cold. Something else. Recognition. Understanding. Elena turned to me, still smiling. "I need to step outside for a minute," she said softly. "Fresh air. Want me to come?" "No," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Just give me 5 minutes." She kissed my cheek and walked away. I watched her go, feeling something stir in my chest, not jealousy, not yet, just curiosity. Who was he? And why did she look like she was about to face a ghost? I waited 10 minutes, then 15. When I finally stepped outside, she was alone on the balcony, arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the city lights. "You okay?" I asked gently. She turned to me, blinking fast, like she was waking up from a dream. "Yeah," she said. "Just needed a break." "From what?" "The noise," she said, shrugging. "Too many people." I believed her. Again. Always. Because that's what trust does to you. It makes you blind. It makes you believe the story someone tells you, even when the truth is hiding in plain sight. There was one more moment. One I didn't think much of at the time. But now, it plays in my head like a warning I ignored. It happened on our 5th wedding anniversary. We went out to dinner, just the two of us, to that same rooftop restaurant where we had our first real conversation. The city lights were spread beneath us like stars, and Elena looked different that night, softer, almost vulnerable. She held my hand across the table and said, "Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if we never met?" I laughed. "Where's this coming from?" "I don't know," she said quietly. "Sometimes I feel like I was meant to find you." I smiled, touched. "Well, I'm glad you did." She didn't smile back, just stared at me with those unreadable eyes. Then, almost under her breath, she whispered, "Me too." And then, just like that, the mood passed. She ordered dessert. We toasted with champagne, took a selfie, posted it online with the caption, "5 years later, still my favorite person." The comments poured in, hundreds of hearts, wishes of true love, and so inspiring. But here's the thing about stories told through filters. They're not real. They're edited, curated, designed to make people believe something that isn't there. And Elena, she wasn't just telling a story. She was writing one. A masterpiece of deception. Every smile, every touch, every carefully crafted photo, all part of the plan. I just didn't know it yet. Looking back now, I can see the cracks. The way she controlled everything. The way she always stayed one step ahead. The way she built this perfect life around a secret so deep, I couldn't even begin to imagine it. But secrets have weight, and no matter how good the performance, eventually, the truth always breaks through. It started small, so small, I almost didn't notice. A text that came in late at night, long after she'd gone to bed, lighting up her phone on the nightstand. I remember hearing it buzz, just once, like a whisper in the dark. I glanced over at her. She was lying still, back turned to me, breathing slow and even. I told myself it was nothing, probably work, or a friend, or maybe even spam. But then it happened again, and again, always around the same time, always when she was already asleep. Or so I thought. One night, I woke up to use the bathroom. The hallway light was off, but the glow from her phone lit up half the bed. She wasn't asleep. She was typing something fast, fingers flying across the screen. When she heard me move, she froze. Then she snapped the phone face down and rolled onto her side without a word. I didn't say anything, didn't ask, didn't want to seem paranoid, but I started paying attention. And the more I watched, the more things didn't add up. There were the calls that always seemed to come in when she was alone. She'd walk out of the room, close the door behind her, and speak in hushed tones. Not angry, not sad, just careful, like she was rehearsing lines instead of having a conversation. Once, I caught a fragment of what she said. Something like, "Not tonight. Too risky." When I asked who it was, she smiled like I'd made a joke. "Just my assistant," she said. "She's been stressed about an upcoming event." I nodded, smiled back, but inside, I felt something twist. It wasn't just the calls. It was the way she guarded her phone now. Used to be, she left it anywhere, on the kitchen counter, next to her coffee mug, in the kids' backpacks. Now, it was always with her, always locked, always clutched in her hand like it held something worth protecting. Even the way she dressed changed. Before, she wore soft colors, flowy dresses, things that looked effortless. Now, she started wearing darker clothes, blacks, deep blues, reds that reminded me of wine stains. Her perfume shifted too. Light florals became something heavier, muskier, almost intoxicating. I noticed how people reacted to it, how men lingered a second too long when she walked past them, how even our friends seemed drawn to her in a different way. She never flirted openly, never crossed any lines, but there was a new energy around her, something electric, something just beneath the surface. Then came the absences. At first, they were minor. A dinner she missed because of a last-minute meeting, a weekend trip she had to cancel. I didn't mind. Life gets busy, work gets hectic, but soon, the absences stretched longer. She started staying late at the studio more often, said she was preparing for a big show. "You know how fashion weeks are," she'd say. "Everyone's losing their minds." I believed her, until I didn't. One evening, I decided to surprise her. I packed the kids into the car and drove to her office. Thought we could all have dinner together. Maybe pick up some cupcakes on the way. Show her we were thinking of her. When I got there, the building was dark. No one was inside. No lights in the windows. No music playing from the speakers she always kept on while designing. I called her. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, babe," I said. "I'm outside your studio. Thought we could grab dinner." There was a pause, a sharp intake of breath. Then, oh no, I already left, but the lights are off. I'm at home, she said quickly. Thought I'd take a break and relax. That's weird, I said. Your car isn't here. Another pause. Oh, right. I took a cab. My battery died earlier. Didn't want to wait for a tow truck. Okay, I said slowly. So where are you now? At home, she repeated. Waiting for you. I hung up and drove back. She was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea. Looked perfectly normal. Perfectly calm. You okay? I asked. Tired, she said. Long day. I kissed her forehead. Let's get you to bed. She smiled. Kissed me back. Everything looked fine. But I knew. Something was wrong. I just didn't know what yet. It wasn't just that she lied. It was how easily she did it. How practiced her words were, like she'd rehearsed them in front of a mirror. Every excuse came too smoothly, too conveniently, as if she expected me to ask questions and had already prepared the answers I wanted to hear. But I didn't push, not at first. I told myself I was being paranoid, that every marriage has moments of doubt, that trust is about choosing not to see what isn't there. Still, the Ennies lingered. Then came the emails. Not hers, his. One night, while I was working late, I heard her phone buzz again. She was asleep beside me, or so I thought, but the glow from the screen painted shadows across her face. I watched as her fingers moved across the keyboard, typing something fast and silent. When she finished, she locked the screen and rolled over without a sound. I waited until her breathing slowed before slipping out of bed. Her phone was on the charger, still warm. The lock screen showed a notification, an email from someone named Alex. Just Alex. No last name. Just 3 words. You're brilliant. That's when I knew. This wasn't work. This wasn't business. This was something else. Something private. Something hidden. I stared at the message long after the screen dimmed. My hands felt cold. My pulse was loud in my ears. Who was Alex? And why did Ilana feel the need to hide him? I didn't say anything the next morning. Didn't ask. Didn't accuse. Instead, I watched her more closely. I noticed things I hadn't before, like how she always checked her phone twice, once in front of me, then again when she thought I wasn't looking. Or how she changed the subject whenever I asked where she'd been the night before. Or how sometimes, when she thought no one could see, she looked almost nervous, like she was waiting for something or someone. Once, I caught her whispering into her phone in a language I didn't recognize. Russian, maybe? Or Polish. Her voice was low, urgent. When I walked into the room, she snapped the phone face down and smiled like nothing was wrong. Just confirming a delivery, she said. They sent the wrong fabric swatches. I nodded, smiled back, but inside, I was unraveling. The worst part was pretending everything was fine. Sitting at the dinner table with our kids, laughing at her jokes, kissing her goodnight like I didn't feel the weight of something huge pressing down on us both. And she played along perfectly. Too perfectly. Sometimes, I wondered if she ever forgot the act. If, in quiet moments, she let herself be real, even just for a second. Or if this version of her, the one who smiled through secrets and whispered lies in the dark, was the only one that existed anymore. Because the truth was starting to show, and it was uglier than I ever imagined. I started paying attention to the silences, not just hers, mine too. There were moments when I wanted to ask her everything, to sit her down and say, tell me the truth, all of it, but I never did, because deep down, I was afraid of what she'd say, afraid that she wouldn't deny it, afraid that she'd tell me everything I already suspected and worse. So instead, I watched and waited. Then came the receipts, not from restaurants or stores, not even credit card statements. These were different, printed and folded, hidden inside her planner like they were meant to be forgotten. One night, while she was in the shower, I found one tucked behind a sketchpad. Just a small piece of paper typed in neat letters. Hotel name, the Langford date, March 3rd, room booked under Mr. Carter. Total charge, $650. I stared at it for a long time. Carter. Alex. I didn't know his last name before then, but somehow I knew it was him. Knew this was proof of something real. I slipped the receipt back into the book and closed it gently, like touching it too much would leave fingerprints. When Elena came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, I was sitting on the bed pretending to scroll through my phone. She kissed my forehead. "You okay?" "Just tired," I said. She smiled, kissed me again, then disappeared into the closet without another word. And I sat there, heart pounding, wondering how many more lies she had stacked between the pages of our life. The next week, I asked her casually, "What's going on with your schedule this month? You seem busier than usual." She paused mid-step, like she was choosing her words carefully. "Just finalizing some new partnerships. It's been intense." "Any big meetings coming up?" "A few," she said. "Nothing too exciting." "What about the end of March?" I asked. "Are you free that weekend?" She hesitated. Only for a second, but it was enough. "I might have something planned," she said slowly. "Why?" "No reason," I said. "Just thought we could get away. Spend some time together." She nodded, smiled. "Let's see how things go." That was it. No explanation, no denial, just a smile and a vague promise. And I let it go. Again. Because that's what trust does to you. It makes you choose peace over truth, silence over confrontation, even when you know something is wrong, even when you feel it in your bones. I kept waiting for the moment when she'd slip, when the mask would crack and the real her would show through. But she never did. She was always ready, always prepared, always one step ahead. Until she wasn't, until the game changed, until I stopped playing by her rules. It wasn't until I found the second message that I understood. This wasn't just a fling. This wasn't just a mistake. This was something bigger, something planned. It happened late one night when she left her laptop open again, this time on the kitchen table, screen glowing with an email draft. She'd gone to pick up Lily from a sleepover, and Jacob was asleep upstairs. I was alone in the house, surrounded by silence and the hum of the refrigerator. I didn't mean to read it. I really didn't. But my eyes caught the words before I could look away. Subject: "We need to talk to." Alex message: "You promised this wouldn't get messy. I'm starting to regret everything." What happens if he finds out? That's all it said. Just 2 sentences. But they hit me like a punch to the gut. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, breath shallow. She wasn't just hiding the affair. She was afraid of what would happen when I found out, which meant she knew it wouldn't stay hidden forever. And still, she kept going. Still played the role of the perfect wife. Still kissed me goodnight. Still held my hand across the dinner table. All while writing messages like this in secret. I closed the laptop slowly, like it might explode in my hands. When Elena came home, I said nothing. Just watched her as she walked into the kitchen, took off her coat, poured herself a glass of wine. "Long day?" I asked. She nodded. "Yeah." I looked at her carefully, waited for any sign of guilt, of fear, but there was none. Only calm, control, and something else, something deeper, a quiet confidence, like she knew exactly what she was doing. And she wasn't scared of the consequences. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because whatever game she was playing, she wasn't planning to lose. I used to think betrayal was simple. You love someone, you trust them, and then one day, they break that trust, and everything falls apart. But now I know better. Betrayal isn't just about lies. It's about control, about who's pulling the strings. And sometimes, It's not who you expect. At first, I thought Alex was just another guy caught in Elena's web, another victim of her charm, another man seduced by her smile and drawn into something he didn't fully understand. But I was wrong, because Alex wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was using her. And maybe she was using him too. It started with a name, not his real one, not at first. Just Alex, the mysterious sender of late-night texts and cryptic emails. The man behind the messages Elena tried so hard to hide. I had no face to match the name, no history, no proof beyond those 2 sentences she wrote. You promised this wouldn't get messy. I'm starting to regret everything. What happens if he finds out? That message haunted me. It wasn't just the fear in her words. It was the way she phrased it. You promised. Like this wasn't just an affair. Like this was part of a plan. So I did what any desperate husband would do. I started digging. Not through her things. Not yet. Not openly, anyway. Instead, I paid attention. Watched her more closely. Listened when she thought I wasn't. Waited for the moment she'd slip up. And eventually, she did. It happened during a charity gala, the same kind of event we always attended. Crowded ballroom, flashing cameras, champagne flutes clinking like tiny bells. She looked stunning, as usual. A black dress that hugged her waist, hair pulled back in a sleek bun. Everyone wanted to talk to her, including him. I saw him before she noticed me. Tall, sharp suit, silver hair combed neatly back. He stood near the bar, talking to a group of investors I recognized from one of our earlier funding rounds. But his eyes weren't on them. They were on her, watching, waiting. Then she saw him. Her smile changed, not much, just enough for me to notice. A flicker of tension in her jaw, a slight shift in posture, like she was preparing for something. She walked over. He greeted her with a kiss on the cheek, polite, professional. But there was something else beneath the surface, something unspoken. I stayed where I was, pretending to talk to Marcus while I listened. Their voices were low, but I caught fragments. Still on schedule? He asked. She nodded. As long as nothing changes. You sure he doesn't suspect? She glanced toward me briefly, then back at him. No, she said. Not yet. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just flirtation. This was coordination. They weren't just lovers. They were partners. In something bigger than I understood. I didn't approach them. Not then. Instead, I walked away, like I hadn't just seen my wife talking to a man she clearly trusted more than me. Like I hadn't just heard her admit that I wasn't supposed to know. Like everything was still normal. Still fine. Still ours. But inside, I was unraveling. Who was this man? What did he mean by still on schedule? And what exactly was Elena not supposed to let me find out? That night, after we got home and the kids were asleep, I watched her carefully as she changed into her nightgown. She moved with practiced ease, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't spent the last hour whispering secrets to another man in a crowded room. I waited until she sat down on the bed before asking the question. Who was that guy you were talking to at the gala? She paused mid-motion, just slightly, enough for me to catch it. What guy? She asked, pulling the covers over her legs. The one near the bar, I said. Tall, silver hair. Oh, she said, shrugging. Just someone from work. I nodded slowly. What's his name again? She looked at me then, really looked, measured, calculating. Alec, she said. He works with some of our investors. Alec, I repeated. Not Alex. Alec. She caught the emphasis. You met him once before, she added quickly. At the fundraiser last year. I hadn't. I would have remembered, but I didn't say anything. Just smiled, kissed her forehead, told her I loved her. And when she whispered it back, I wondered if she even meant it. The next morning, I started searching. Not for Alec, but for Alex. because that's who he really was. It didn't take long to find him. His real name, Alexander Krasnov, Russian-born, naturalized citizen, businessman, investor, connected to half a dozen startups I'd heard of, including one that had recently tried to buy a stake in my company. Coincidence? No. Nothing about this was random. I dug deeper, found photos, articles, even an old interview where he talked about leveraging personal relationships for strategic growth. My stomach turned. This wasn't just a fling. This was strategy. Elena hadn't fallen for him. She'd partnered with him, and I was the target. I should have confronted her, should have demanded answers, screamed, yelled, done something, but I didn't. Instead, I played along, because now I knew the truth, and I wanted to see how far she'd go. So I watched, waited, listened, and what I found shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. It started with a call, not hers, his. One night, while she was in the shower, I heard her phone buzz on the counter. It lit up with a name I recognized instantly. Alex. I stared at it like it might bite me. The message was short. Just 5 words. Meeting still on for tomorrow. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then, seconds later, another message came through. Don't forget the documents. That's when it hit me. They weren't just sleeping together. They were planning something. Something real. And I was part of it. The next day, I followed her. Not in person. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I used the GPS on her car. Something I never thought I'd need. Something I only installed because of the kids. She left the house early, before sunrise. Dropped Lily off at school. Then drove straight to a downtown office building I didn't recognize. I waited until she disappeared inside before pulling out my phone. A quick search told me everything. The building housed a private equity firm, one with ties to Alexander Krasnov. And suddenly, it all made sense. She wasn't just having an affair. She was helping him take me down. Later that week, I got a call from my business partner. We've got a problem, he said. What kind of problem? There's a new investor trying to buy into our round. Someone we don't know. They're offering more than we expected. Who is it? He hesitated. Krasnov Capital. My stomach dropped. Alexander Krasnov. Of course. She's involved, isn't she? My partner asked quietly. I didn't answer, because I already knew the truth. Elena had access to everything. Our financials, our contracts, even my personal emails. She knew how the company worked, knew my weaknesses, my blind spots, and she gave them to him. Not for love, not for passion, for control, and maybe revenge. But why? What had I done to deserve this? I didn't sleep that night, just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe beside me like nothing had changed, like she hadn't just handed my life over to someone else, like she wasn't playing a game I didn't even know the rules to. And then it hit me, the most terrifying thought of all. She wasn't the one in control. Alex was. He'd been pulling the strings from the beginning, using her access, her influence, her connection to me as leverage. She thought she was in charge of the plan, but maybe she was just another piece on his board. So who was really behind this? Who had orchestrated the messages, the meetings, the betrayal? Was it Alex? Or Elena? Or were they working together? I needed answers, but I couldn't ask her directly. Not yet. Instead, I decided to do something reckless, something dangerous. I went to the meeting, not hers, mine. I reached out to Krasnov Capital under the pretense of discussing a potential partnership, said I wanted to hear their offer firsthand, that I was open to new opportunities. They responded within hours. Meeting scheduled for Friday afternoon. At their office, in the same building where Elena had gone days before. I dressed carefully. Clean shave, iron shirt, Watched myself in the mirror as I tied my tie and told myself I could walk into this room and come out stronger than when I entered. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about business anymore. It was about survival. And I was walking straight into the lion's den. I walked into that office like I belonged there, like I hadn't spent the last week replaying every moment, every lie, every whisper behind closed doors, like I didn't know my wife had betrayed me, like I wasn't about to walk straight into the heart of the storm. Alexander Krasnov greeted me with a firm handshake and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Harper," he said, "pleasure to finally meet you in person." I shook his hand, forcing a smile of my own. Likewise. He led me into a sleek, minimalist conference room, floor-to-ceiling windows, polished wood table, a single vase of white lily in the center. Too clean, too staged, like everything else in this life I was starting to question. We sat across from each other, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "I hear you're open to new partnerships," he said. I nodded slowly. "Depends on the terms." He smiled again, that same cold, practiced expression. "Oh, I think you'll find our offer very generous." I watched him carefully as he slid a folder across the table. No logo, no branding, just a thick stack of paper inside. Inside were the details of a buyout, not just an investment, a full acquisition of my company. And then I saw it, in the fine print, a clause that gave Krasnov Capital final authority over all major decisions, including the removal of the current CEO, me. I looked up at him slowly. "You already have someone lined up," I said. His smile widened. "Of course," he replied. "You wouldn't want to be the one to fail your investors, would you?" I felt my jaw tighten. This wasn't just business. It was personal. And suddenly, I understood. Elena hadn't been working alone. She'd been following orders. Alex had orchestrated everything, the affair, the access, the betrayal. She thought she was playing her own game, but she was just another pawn. And now, they both thought I was going to roll over and let them take everything. They were wrong. I left that meeting with a smile on my face and fire in my chest. Krasnov thought he had me exactly where he wanted, backed into a corner, desperate to save what little I had left. He offered me a deal wrapped in velvet and lined with poison. Sign over control, keep your name, walk away with enough money to never work again. He thought I'd take it, but he didn't know me. And more importantly, he didn't know her. Because if Elena was being used, then maybe I could use her too. I didn't go home right away. Instead, I drove around the city for hours, replaying every moment of our marriage like a movie I hadn't seen clearly until now. The late-night calls, the hidden messages, the way she looked at me sometimes, not with love, but with something colder. Calculation, control, fear. She wasn't just sleeping with him. She was afraid of him. And that changed everything. When I finally walked through the front door, she was sitting on the couch, flipping through a fashion magazine. She looked up, smiled, and said, "How did it go?" "Fine," I said, shrugging off my coat. "They made an offer." Her fingers paused on the page, just slightly, not enough for most people to notice. But I wasn't most people anymore. "What kind of offer?" she asked. I sat beside her, close enough to touch, close enough to see the flicker of tension behind her eyes. "They want to buy us out," I said casually. "Full acquisition." She didn't react the way I expected. No surprise, no excitement, just silence. Then, quietly, "What did you say?" I told them I needed time to think about it. She nodded once, slowly, and then, without looking at me, she whispered, "You should take it." I turned to her, studying her face. "Why?" I asked. She hesitated. "Just long enough." "Because it's a good deal," she said. "And you've been working so hard." You deserve to relax. That was when I knew. This wasn't just about business for her either. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to survive. I didn't push her that night. Didn't ask the questions burning in my chest. Didn't demand the truth I knew she was hiding. Instead, I kissed her forehead and told her I loved her. She whispered it back, but her voice cracked on the last syllable, and I heard something else beneath it. Fear. Not just fear of me finding out. Fear of him. Of Alex. That's when I realized this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about control. About who had the upper hand. And I was done being the victim. The next morning, I woke up before her, slipped out of bed quietly, pulled on a hoodie, and walked into the study with my laptop. I needed to see everything. Every message. Every email. Every hidden thread connecting her to him. It took hours, but I found it. All of it. Hidden behind a secondary account she thought I'd never find. Encrypted messages, meeting notes, even recordings. Yes, recordings. One in particular caught my attention. A conversation between Elena and Alex. Recorded 2 weeks ago. In a car. Late at night. You promised this wouldn't get messy, she said. The same words from the draft email I'd seen weeks earlier. I know, he replied. But you understand what's at stake. He suspects something, she whispered. I can feel it. Then make sure he doesn't find anything real, he said. We're too close now. What happens if he finds out everything? There was a pause. Then his voice cold, calm, terrifying. Then we make sure he believes the wrong thing. I closed the laptop slowly, heart pounding, hands shaking. They weren't just trying to take my company. They were trying to ruin me, to paint me as the villain, to make me look like the one who lost control. But they made one mistake. They underestimated me. And now, I had the truth. Now, I could play the game too. I didn't tell her what I found. Not yet. Instead, I played along. Smiled when she kissed me good morning. Laughed at her jokes during dinner. Let her believe she was still in control. But inside, I was already planning. Because now I had something they didn't expect. Proof. And not just any proof, undeniable, irrefutable evidence that Elena wasn't just sleeping with Alex Krasnov. She was working with him, and he was using her to destroy me. That changed everything. Because if they wanted a game of manipulation, I'd give them one they'd never forget. It started with a message. Not from me, from her. Late that night, while she thought I was asleep, I heard her whisper into her phone again. I think he knows, she said. He's acting different. There was a pause. Then she whispered, what do I do? Another pause. A shaky breath. I don't want to lose everything. I closed my eyes and pretended to snore. Let her believe I hadn't heard a word. Let her believe I was still the man she could outsmart. Let her believe she was still the one pulling the strings. But the next morning, I made my move. I reached out to my lawyer. Sent him everything, the messages, the recordings, the meeting notes. Told him one thing. I want full legal protection. And I want to hit back harder than they ever expected. He asked if I was sure. I smiled. Never been more sure of anything in my life. That same afternoon, I called Alex. Not from my number, from an anonymous burner. He answered on the second ring. This is Krasnov. Hello, Alex, I said, keeping my voice calm. We need to talk. There was a pause. Then, carefully, who is this? Someone who knows exactly what you're doing, I said, and someone who's about to make sure the whole world finds out. He didn't respond right away. Just silence. Then a quiet, almost amused laugh. You have no idea what you're stepping into, he said. Oh, I think I do, I replied. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. I hung up before he could say anything else. And as I sat there, phone in hand, I realized something strange. I wasn't angry. Not really. Not anymore. Because anger fades. But revenge. Revenge lasts forever. I've always believed that revenge is best served cold, not with yelling or tears or dramatic confrontations in the middle of the night. No, real revenge is quiet, calculated, patient, and I had become a master of it. From the moment I hung up on Alex Krosnov, I knew what I had to do. I wouldn't expose Elena just yet. No, I'd let her believe she was still in control. Let her think she could outsmart me. Let her walk right into the trap I built myself. So I smiled more, spoke softer, touched her hand across the table like nothing had changed, even when everything had. She didn't suspect a thing. At least, not at first. But as the days passed, I saw the cracks forming in her perfect mask. The way she watched me sometimes, searching my face for something she couldn't find. The way she hesitated before answering her phone, like she expected me to ask questions I never did. I played the part flawlessly, the devoted husband, the trusting fool, and while she thought she was still running the game, I was already 3 moves ahead, because I wasn't just planning revenge. I was planning exposure. A public fall from grace so complete, so undeniable, that no amount of charm or beauty or carefully curated Instagram posts could save her. And I had the perfect opportunity coming up. Our company's annual investor gala. Hundreds of people, cameras, reporters, influencers, investors who trusted me and doubted her. It was the stage I needed, and I was ready to pull the curtain. All I needed now was her to walk onto it. I started small, just enough to make her think I was falling for it. I told her I wanted to go public with the acquisition deal, that I'd finally decided to accept Krosnov's offer. She didn't believe me at first, watched me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "You're really going to sell?" she asked, voice careful. I nodded. "Yeah, it's time." She hesitated, just long enough for me to catch it. Then slowly, a smile spread across her lips. "That's great," she said softly. "You deserve this." I kissed her cheek. "Thanks to you." Her eyes widened slightly. Not with guilt, not yet, but with something close to it. A flicker of doubt. Good. Let her wonder. Let her question. Let her think she was still in control. Then I gave her the final piece of bait. "I'm going to announce it at the gala," I said casually over dinner. "Make it official." Her fork clinked against her plate. "Are you sure?" she asked. "It's a big moment. You don't want to rush it." I smiled. "No better time than now." She forced a laugh. "Okay. If you say so." And just like that, the trap was set. All I had to do now was wait. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Dress fittings, speeches, invitations. The entire city was buzzing about the event. A major tech CEO stepping down. That kind of news travels fast. Elena threw herself into the planning like it was a mission. Picked out her dress, deep red, strapless, elegant. The same color she wore the night I found her, whispering into her phone on the balcony. Coincidence? No. Everything she did was calculated. Even her silence. Even her smiles. Even the way she kissed me goodnight like nothing had changed. But I knew better. And I made sure she thought I didn't. The night of the gala arrived faster than I expected. We stood side by side in front of the mirror as she adjusted my tie. Her fingers brushed mine, soft, familiar, almost tender, almost real. I looked at her reflection. "You look beautiful," I said. She smiled. "Thank you." I leaned in and whispered in her ear, "Tonight's going to be unforgettable." She stiffened, just slightly, then laughed, light, airy, effortless. "Of course it will be," she said. "It always is." And with that, we walked out the door, into the lights, into the cameras, into the moment I had been waiting for. Because tonight, I wouldn't just expose her, I would ruin her. In front of everyone who thought she was untouchable. In front of everyone who believed in her perfect facade. Tonight, she would fall. and I would make sure the world watched. We walked into that ballroom like royalty, flashes of cameras, smiles from strangers, the hum of conversation fading slightly as people noticed us enter together. Elena on my arm, smiling, beautiful, and touchable. She played her role to perfection, and I let her, because tonight wasn't about stopping her. It was about exposing her. I kissed her cheek and whispered, "You're going to love this." Then I walked away before she could ask what I meant. I took my place at the podium, heart steady, hands calm. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me. Reporters lifted their phones. Investors leaned forward. Elena stood near the back, watching me carefully, not with pride, but with something else. Suspicion, fear, recognition. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know what. I cleared my throat. "Good evening, everyone." Polite applause. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight, for your support, your trust, and for believing in what we've built." I paused, let it settle. Then I said the words that would change everything. "But tonight isn't just about celebration." A ripple passed through the crowd. Elena's posture shifted. I continued, "It's also about truth." I looked directly at her. "And sometimes, the truth isn't what it seems." Silence, tension, and then I dropped the first bomb. "I recently discovered something disturbing, something that has been hidden from me, from all of us, for far too long." I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out a small device, pressed play. The room filled with sound. Her voice, his voice, their conversation, every lie, every plan, every secret she thought she had buried. I let the recording speak for itself. 5 minutes of undeniable proof that she had betrayed me, that she had worked with Alex Krasnov, that she had tried to take everything from me. When it ended, the silence was deafening. I looked at her. She hadn't moved, not even a blink. But I saw it, the moment her world shattered, and I smiled, softly, quietly, because now everyone knew the truth, and no amount of charm or beauty or perfect Instagram captions could save her now. She was trapped in the game she thought she controlled, and I was standing above it all, watching her fall. The moment the recording ended, time slowed down, like someone had pressed pause on the world, but only for me. Everyone else moved in chaos. Reporters started shouting questions. Investors whispered among themselves. Some stood frozen, unsure what to do next. Others pulled out their phones, already live streaming the fallout to thousands of followers. And then there was Elena. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even breathe, it seemed. Her eyes locked onto mine across the room. Not with anger, not with betrayal, with something worse. Disbelief. She thought she was untouchable, that her beauty, her charm, her carefully curated image would protect her from consequences. But I had taken that away. In front of everyone who mattered, I stepped off the stage and walked toward her slowly, like a predator closing in on wounded prey. People parted as I passed. Some looked at me with admiration, others with pity, a few with fear, but no one approached her. Not even the so-called friends who once called her the most inspiring woman they knew. She finally blinked. Then, quietly, almost too quietly to hear, she said, "You wouldn't." I stopped just inches from her. "I already did," I replied. Her lips trembled, just slightly. Then she turned and stormed out of the ballroom, heels clicking against the marble floor like gunshots. I let her go. There was nowhere left to run. By morning, the story had gone viral, not just because of the scandal, but because of how it happened. A CEO exposing his wife's infidelity and betrayal in front of hundreds of powerful people. It was the kind of drama social media couldn't resist. Headlines read, "Tech mogul exposes wife's betrayal, live on stage, fashion designer caught in $1 million scandal, from golden couple to ruins." The truth behind the perfect facade. Videos of the speech were shared millions of times. Screenshots of Elena's name flashing on the screen during my speech. Clips of her walking out, silent and defeated. Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, TikTok. Every platform dissected our marriage like it was a true crime podcast. And every post made one thing clear. She was finished, at least in the world she built. She didn't come home that night, or the next. When she finally returned, it was early in the morning. She looked like a ghost of herself, eyes red, makeup smeared, hair tangled from sleepless hours. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, waiting. She paused in the doorway. "You ruined me," she whispered. I looked up at her. "No," I said. "You did that yourself." She shook her head, tears spilling over. "They don't understand what really happened. They heard your voice," I said calmly. "They heard you planning everything with him. But they don't know why," she said, voice breaking. I stood slowly. "Why?" I asked. "Tell me why, Elena. Was it money? Power? Revenge?" She took a shaky breath. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." I stared at her. "That's not an answer." She closed her eyes. "He had something on me," she whispered. "Something I couldn't walk away from." I felt my stomach twist. "What are you talking about?" She opened her eyes. "He knew things. About my past. About my family." I didn't say anything. Just waited. "He threatened to expose everything," she said, "unless I helped him." My hands clenched into fists. "Did you ever love me?" I asked. She hesitated. And that was all the answer I needed. She didn't try to deny it again. Not after that. Instead, she just stood there, eyes red, shoulders trembling, like she was waiting for me to say something. Anything. But I couldn't speak. Because now, everything had changed. I thought I knew what this was. A betrayal. A game. A carefully orchestrated plan to take everything from me. But now I saw the truth. She wasn't the one pulling the strings. She was a victim too. Just like me. Maybe even more than me. And that made it worse. Because if she'd told me sooner, if she'd trusted me, we might have survived this together. Instead, she chose silence. And now it was too late. The fallout came fast. By midday, her Instagram was flooded with comments. Some cruel, some sympathetic, most just hungry for more. Her brand suffered first. Retailers dropped her line overnight. Influencers who once praised her name suddenly distanced themselves. One posted a cryptic story. "Sometimes you don't really know someone until it's too late." It got over 500,000 likes in an hour. Then came the personal losses. Our friends took sides. Some stood by me, said I did the right thing, that I protected myself and our kids. Others whispered that I should have handled it privately, that I humiliated her in front of the world when I could have just walked away. Even my sister sent me a message. "You didn't have to do it like that." But she didn't understand. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it for proof. So no one could ever doubt the truth again. That night, I sat alone in the study while Elena packed her things upstairs. I heard drawers open and close, the soft rustle of clothes being folded, the occasional pause, like she was deciding what to take and what to leave behind. What parts of this life still belonged to her? What parts were gone forever? Eventually, she came downstairs, suitcase in hand. She stopped at the doorway. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't look up. "I know." She hesitated. Then, quietly, "You'll never believe me, but I did love you." I finally met her eyes. "I know that too." She looked surprised. "But it doesn't change anything," I added. "No," she said softly. "It doesn't." And then she turned and walked out the door, without another word, without looking back. She was gone, not just from the house, from everything. Her social media accounts went private within hours. Her fashion brand issued a vague statement, Elena Harper will be stepping back from day-to-day operations to focus on personal matters. Translation. She was finished. Even her lawyer called me the next morning. She doesn't want to fight, he said. She's not contesting anything. I didn't feel victorious. Didn't feel relief. Just silence. The kind that follows a storm after the last thunderclap has faded. And yet the world kept talking. Reporters dug deeper. They found old interviews, photos from before we were famous, friends who suddenly remembered things they hadn't mentioned before. One journalist even wrote an article titled, "Was Elena Harper Set Up?" It speculated that I had planned everything from the beginning, that I used her connections to build my company, then discarded her when it was convenient, that I was the real manipulator. Of course, people believed what they wanted to believe. Some still saw her as a victim. Others called her a traitor. But no one could deny one thing. She had played the game. And she lost. A week later, I picked up Lily from school and found her teacher waiting for me. "Mr. Harper," she said gently. Lily came in today asking if her mommy was coming back. I felt my chest tighten. "What did you tell her?" "That sometimes grown-ups need time apart," she said carefully. "But that mamas still love their kids, no matter what." I nodded slowly. "Thank you." When I got home, I sat with Lily on the couch. She looked up at me with those big, familiar eyes. "Is mommy ever coming back?" she asked. I hesitated. Then I said the only thing I could. "I don't know, sweetheart." She hugged my arm and rested her head on my shoulder. And for the first time since that night at the gala, I felt like crying, because revenge might have given me justice, but it didn't give me peace. And nothing, not the headlines, not the viral videos, not the public shaming, could bring back the life we once had. Only silence remained, and the echo of a woman who once whispered lies in the dark, now gone forever. It didn't end with the gala, not even close. If I thought exposing Elena would bring me peace, I was wrong. Because once the truth was out, once the world knew what she had done, the real consequences began. And they hit harder than I ever expected. First came the legal battles. Not with her. She didn't fight for anything. The house gone. The cars sold. Her share of the company frozen under investigation after I leaked more documents to the press, just enough to show that Alex Krosnov had been running a quiet empire built on manipulation and blackmail. No, it wasn't Elena who fought back. It was the system. My lawyers worked fast, but not fast enough to stop the damage. Investors pulled out. Partnerships dissolved. A few loyal employees stayed, but most ran for the hills the moment the scandal hit the headlines. I kept the company alive, barely, but at a cost. Reputation, trust, control. People whispered behind my back, said I should have handled it differently, that I humiliated her in front of the world when I could have just walked away, that I made an example of her instead of protecting our family. But what did they know? They weren't there when she whispered into her phone in the middle of the night. They didn't hear her lie to my face while planning my downfall. They didn't feel the weight of betrayal pressing down on them every time she kissed me goodnight. So no, I don't regret what I did, but I do regret how it changed everything else, especially the kids. Lily stopped asking about her mother after the first month. She didn't cry, didn't ask questions, just stopped, like she understood that some things were too complicated for a 7-year-old to fix. Jacob was different. He didn't understand why mommy wasn't coming home, why she didn't tuck him in or make his pancakes on Saturday mornings. He'd wake up crying sometimes, whispering her name like he thought she'd appear if he said it loud enough. One morning, he asked me, "Did we do something bad?" I felt my heart break. "No, buddy," I said, kneeling in front of him. "You didn't do anything wrong." Then why did she leave? I didn't have an answer he could understand, so I just held him Told him everything would be okay, even though I wasn't sure it would be. Elena disappeared from public life almost immediately. Her Instagram went private. Her brand rebranded without her name. Her old interviews were taken down from fashion websites. It was like she had never existed. At first, I thought she was hiding. Then I realized she was erasing herself from everything, even from our past. I heard from her lawyer once, just one message. She doesn't want custody. She doesn't want money. She wants to start over. I read it 3 times before I believed it. She didn't even want to fight for her own children. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about shame. This was about guilt. She knew what she had done, knew it couldn't be undone. And maybe she didn't think she deserved forgiveness. Maybe she was right. I started sleeping again. Not well, not often, but I could close my eyes now without seeing her face in the dark, without hearing her whisper lies in the silence. I focused on work, on the kids, on rebuilding something real. But even as I moved forward, I couldn't shake the question. Was it justice, or was it revenge? Because the line between the two is thinner than I ever imagined. And sometimes, the person who wins the game still loses everything else. People always ask me one thing: do you regret it? Not did she deserve it. They already know the answer to that. No, they want to know if I feel guilt, if I wake up some mornings wishing I could take it all back, if I ever wonder what life would have been like if I had chosen silence instead of exposure. And honestly, some nights, I lie awake thinking about it. I replay every moment. The first time I saw her whisper into her phone in the dark, the way she looked at Alex across the room at the gala, the quiet fear in her voice when she said, "You don't know the whole truth." She was right about that. I didn't. Not then. But even now, knowing what I know, that she was being manipulated too, I still wouldn't have done anything differently. Because betrayal is betrayal, even when it's born from fear, even when it's not meant to hurt. And I learned something else too. That power is fragile. One night on a stage, and everything changes. Reputation, trust, love, all of it can be taken away with just a few words. And once it's gone, it never really comes back. Work became my escape, not because I loved it more than before, but because it gave me structure, routine, a reason to keep moving forward. My company survived, barely. We rebranded, restructured, cut ties with anyone connected to Krasnov. He disappeared after the scandal broke, left the country quietly, under a different name. Some say he's in Moscow now. Others say he's living off-grid somewhere in Eastern Europe. Either way, he's gone. And so is his influence. But the damage he caused still lingers. Investors are cautious. Partners hesitate before signing contracts. People still bring up the scandal during meetings, even if they pretend not to. Sometimes I catch someone looking at me differently, like they're wondering if I'm dangerous, if I'm capable of doing the same thing to them. And maybe I am. Maybe power teaches you things you never wanted to learn. How to control people, how to destroy them, how to make sure no one ever crosses you again. The kids kept me grounded. Without them, I think I'd still be chasing justice long after it stopped mattering. Lily started therapy after a month of silence. She didn't cry, didn't lash out, just withdrew. Her therapist told me it was normal. Children process grief differently. They don't always cry. Sometimes they just stop smiling. So we worked on that. We watched movies together, built pillow forts, took weekend trips to the beach. We made new traditions, new memories. Slowly, she started talking again about school, her friends, how much she missed pancakes on Saturday mornings. Jacob still asks about her sometimes. Is mommy coming home? And every time, I tell him the truth. No, buddy, not right now. He doesn't understand why, but someday he will. And when that day comes, I'll be ready to explain what happened, to tell him that love isn't always enough, that sometimes people make mistakes that change everything, and that sometimes even the people who love you can hurt you the most. I found one of her old journals a few weeks later, not on purpose, not while searching. It was tucked behind some books in the study, covered in dust like it had been forgotten for years. I almost didn't open it, but something made me. Maybe curiosity, maybe guilt, maybe the need to hear her voice one last time, not the one she showed the world, but the real one, the one that existed before the lies took over. Inside were pages of notes, sketches of dresses, ideas for collections, a list of things she wanted to teach Lily when she got older. And then, near the end, a single entry dated just 2 days before the gala. He doesn't know what I've done, and maybe he never will, but I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending. I thought I could protect him from the truth, protect our life, but every lie I tell feels heavier than the last, and I'm afraid, one day, it's all going to fall apart. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just regret, and somehow, that hurt more than anything else. Because even then, even as she betrayed me, she still loved me enough to feel guilty about it. Months passed, then a year. Life settled into a new kind of normal. Work stabilized. The kids grew. I learned how to be both parents at once, to cook dinner, tie shoes, help with homework, and kiss scraped knees without panicking. I built something real again. Not perfect, not the same, but real. And yet, sometimes, late at night, I'd catch myself wondering where she was, if she ever thought about us, if she missed the sound of Lily's laugh, if she dreamed about Jacob's first steps, if she ever looked at the stars and remembered the way we used to talk beneath them. I don't hate her, not anymore. I understand her now in a way I couldn't before. She wasn't evil. She wasn't a villain. She was just broken, used by someone who knew exactly how to break her, and she tried to survive the only way she knew how, by playing the game, even if it meant losing everything. People still ask me if I forgive her. I don't have an easy answer. Forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a process, one that takes years, one that you don't always realize is happening until you're already halfway through it. Do I wish things had ended differently? Every day. But do I believe she deserved what happened? No. Because no one deserves to lose everything. Not even someone who broke your heart. So where does that leave us? Nowhere. And everywhere. Because even though she's gone, her choices still echo in my life, in my kids' lives, in the silence that fills the house when I think too much. And maybe that's the real punishment. Not the scandal, not the betrayal, not the public shame, but the quiet ache of knowing that love wasn't enough to save us. And nothing, not revenge, not justice, not even time, can bring back what we lost. I thought I'd never see her again. Not in person. Not like that. Sure, sometimes she'd appear in my dreams, not as the woman who betrayed me, but as the one I fell in love with, the one who laughed too loud at bad jokes, who kissed me like she meant it, who held my hand when we walked through the city and whispered secrets into the wind. But reality doesn't give you back what you've lost. Not easily. Not without cost. So when I saw her again, standing across the street outside Lily's recital, wearing a long coat and sunglasses even though the sun had already set, I didn't believe it at first. It had been 5 years. 5 years of silence. 5 years of rebuilding. 5 years of pretending I didn't still feel something every time someone mentioned her name. And there she was, like nothing had changed, like she hadn't walked away from everything we built. I almost didn't approach her, almost let her disappear again. But then Lily ran up behind me, holding my hand, asking, "Daddy, who's that lady?" I looked down at her. "She's no one," I said quietly. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. She was someone, And if she was here now, then she had a reason. We met the next day. Not at the house, not in public. At a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where people go to talk without being seen. She looked different, older, tired, but still beautiful in that way that made my chest ache. She didn't smile when she saw me, didn't hug me, just sat down across from me and said, "You deserve the truth." I crossed my arms. "You should have said that 5 years ago." She nodded slowly. "I know." A long silence passed between us. Then she took a deep breath and began. "It wasn't just about Alex." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" She leaned forward slightly. "He didn't come after me first." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "He came after you." I stared at her. "That's not possible." "He approached me before we got married," she continued. "Before we were even engaged. Said he wanted to invest in your company. Said he could make you successful faster than anyone else." I shook my head. "That's not true." "It is," she said. "He offered me money, protection, a future. All I had to do was stay close to you. Keep an eye on your finances. Make sure he always knew what you were planning." I felt cold. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried," she whispered. "Once. Right before we got married. I told him I was done, that I wouldn't help anymore. And," she looked away, "he threatened to ruin you, to take everything from you, unless I kept playing along." I swallowed hard. "So you did," she nodded. "For years, until I couldn't anymore." I stared at her, heart pounding. "If that's true, why come back now?" She finally looked me in the eyes. "Because I found something." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Inside were documents, emails, contracts, and one name, repeated over and over. Alexander Krasnov. Only this time, it wasn't linked to me. It was linked to her. "My father worked for him," she said quietly. "Years ago? Before I even knew who he was. He disappeared after trying to expose him. No one ever found his body." I felt my breath catch. "Elena, I didn't betray you for power," she said softly. "I betrayed you for revenge." I didn't speak. I couldn't, because suddenly, everything I thought I knew was a lie. I didn't say anything at first, just stared at the documents in front of me like they might change if I looked at them long enough, like they might turn into something else, something less damning. But they didn't. They stayed exactly what they were. Proof that everything I thought I knew about her, about us, about the betrayal that shattered my life, had been built on a foundation far more complicated than I ever imagined. She watched me carefully, waiting, not for forgiveness, not for anger, for understanding. And slowly, it came. "Why now?" I asked finally. 5 years later, why come back now? She exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for years. "Because I found the last piece," she said quietly, "and I needed your help to finish this." I shook my head. "Finish what?" She leaned forward again, voice low, steady. "The truth." She opened another folder and slid it across the table. Inside were photos. Alex Krasnov, alive, in Moscow, meeting with investors, still pulling strings, still playing the game. Only now, he wasn't just targeting businesses. He was targeting families. Mine, hers, ours. "He thought you were gone," I said. "That he disappeared after the scandal." "No," she whispered. "He just moved on, found new players, new pawns." I looked at the photo again, at the man who nearly destroyed me, and realized something strange. I didn't feel rage. Not anymore. I felt clarity, because now I understood. She hadn't played me. She'd tried to protect me, even if it meant losing me in the process. We talked for hours. No yelling, no accusations, just silence between sentences. The kind that comes when people are trying to rebuild something fragile. She told me everything. How Alex had approached her before we were even engaged. How he'd used her family's past against her. How he made her believe that staying close to me was the only way to keep me safe. And when did you decide to fight back? I asked. When I realized he wasn't going to stop, she said. When I saw what he was doing to other people, to other families, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I studied her face. You could have told me. I know, she said softly. But I was scared. Of what he'd do. Of what you'd do. I didn't respond right away. Because she was right. If she had told me then what she was telling me now, would I have believed her? Would I have stood beside her? Or would I have walked away anyway? Maybe that's the cruelest part of betrayal. It doesn't always come from malice. Sometimes it comes from fear. From the belief that you're protecting someone even if it means hurting them first. We didn't go back to being a family that night. That would have been impossible. Too much had happened. Too many lies. Too many years of silence. But something changed. Not between us, not yet, but inside me, because for the first time in 5 years, I saw her clearly. Not as the woman who betrayed me. Not as the villain of my story. But as someone who had spent her whole life running from ghosts. And finally stopped. A month later, we met again. This time, not just to talk. To act. She had built a case over the years, documents, recordings, testimonies from others Alex had used and discarded. People he had manipulated. Families he had destroyed. And now, with Krasnov resurfacing in Moscow, she was ready to take him down for good. I can't do this alone, she said. I need your help. I looked at her carefully. You already have it. She blinked, surprised. Just like that. I shook my head. No, not just like that. But I understand now. And sometimes, understanding is the first step towards something bigger. She smiled small, tired, but real. And so we did it together. We leaked everything. Not just her past, not just mine, but everyone else's too. Victims from across 3 continents. Financial records. Secret partnerships. Hidden accounts. A network of manipulation that stretched further than even she had imagined. Within days, Krasnov disappeared again. This time, not to hide. This time, because Interpol was looking for him. And this time, they weren't going to let him walk away. It took 6 months for the dust to settle. By then, the world had forgotten about our scandal, about the gala, the betrayal, the viral videos. But I hadn't, and neither had she. We never got back together, not in the way people expect. But we found something else. Closure, understanding, forgiveness, slowly, quietly, without fanfare. Sometimes, she came over to see the kids. Lily still called her mommy. Jacob hugged her like he remembered her. And when they ran off to play, we'd sit on the porch and talk. About nothing. About everything. About how life changes you. How love doesn't always last. But healing does. Eventually. One night, after she left, I stood outside and looked up at the stars. The same ones we used to lie beneath when we were young. When we thought we knew what love was. When we believed that trust was enough. And I whispered into the dark, who really played the double game. Not her. Not me. Life. Because it gives you pieces and tells you it's a puzzle. And sometimes, you don't realize you've been building the wrong picture until it's too late. But maybe, that's okay. Because some stories don't end with happily ever after. They end with truth. With peace. With the quiet understanding that even broken things can heal. And sometimes, even the deepest betrayals can lead to the most unexpected redemption.